Hey, what's up guys, aarava here and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2019 career mode, episode number 16 today for the Singapore Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous one, the Italian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A very good episode that was indeed. Singapore, though, may not be. Singapore is a very difficult circuit as it is in the modern F1 games. The AI are very consistent around here. Tyre wear has been quite a fair issue, but for us, the real issue will be the fact that despite we have a development upgrade of a chassis weight reduction, which will help things, make the car maneuverable, you can see there, we've got, well, rain of some sort forecast for the entire race. We've got intermediate conditions, it would seem, at the start, and then it appears it's forecasting heavy rain, so full wet tyres needed for most of the Grand Prix, which is pretty horrendous anyway, let alone at the Singapore Grand Prix, the longest race on the F1 calendar. So this is going to be a long slog of a Sunday here. We come in terms of the performance update, we've kind of plateaued a little bit, tiny, small update with the weight reduction there to remain ahead of Racing Point there, but Renault retain that fourth place on paper. In terms of our engine, though, that is going to be another spanner in the works. So not only is it raining, so that's a tough race in itself, I will have to take 2 penalties to change the MGK and the control electronics, which I'm being surprised by. Control electronics is never usually a part I struggle with, but on this year's game, it seems to be wearing quite a lot faster than 2018. So the MGK, control electronics, both replaced. That will be a 10-place grid penalty, I think it's 5 for each component, so a 10-place grid penalty. In hindsight, maybe should have looked at maybe taking others, but at the time, I just thought we'll go with these 2, and so we know we're going to have that 10-place grid penalty, so we have to try and qualify as high as we can to obviously help ourselves out in the race, let alone a wet race. So let's go into qualifying and then drive the car with some anger and see how far up the order we can get.
It's time for us to settle down and the drivers below to get fired up. Once again, welcome to Singapore as we get ready for the green light and the start of what should be a fantastic qualifying session. Now then, Anthony Davidson, you're not getting any younger, but you have been involved in your fair share of qualifying sessions in an illustrious 30-year career. How do you deal with the pressure when you have that one chance to deliver a perfect lap?
It's not so much about dealing with the pressure, it's more about how you approach the risk and just how much of it are you willing to take. You're constantly balancing the car on the edge of grip from braking, cornering and traction. And over the course of a lap, it's easy to get that balance wrong. And that's why achieving the perfect lap is almost impossible. As you say, I've been doing this 30 years now, and it never gets any easier.
Right, so here we are on our first flying lap in Q1 then, and the car, I gotta say, felt very odd around Singapore, even in practice, did a few practice laps, and still couldn't get used to it here. I think at Singapore and Monaco on the game, the steering column and rack kind of does change a little bit, so the saturation of your steering is a little bit different, and at Singapore, like last year really, my wheel almost felt like it was kind of off and broken a bit, so that was taking some time to get used to. You can see I've lost a lot of time to Raikkonen, despite making it through into Q2, plenty of time to find on Kimi there, but at least he's showing that the car has some decent pace. Obviously, though, a few people on medium tyres, so we get to see really the full clap of the top 3 teams, Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes all at one go. And here we go, Hamilton with the fast lap of the session now. So now we'll really see where our car's going to be. And I'm kind of worried about not making it into the top 10. That's how kind of weird the car was feeling. I don't know about any of you guys at home, if you feel the same way about Singapore, if you drive on a wheel. If you go from Italy to Singapore in career mode, to me at least, it just felt like a stark difference. Like I wasn't driving the exact same car or handling model in a way. I don't know what it really was. But despite that, still trying to find the time there. Up into P5 in that first run, down to P9 now by the time we do our second run, but we found a heap of time there on that second run. I think the track was also evolving quite a fair bit and gripping up, so we should be able to comfortably get into the top 10 hopefully, because we're still in there technically right now. But we go through the last corner, a bit of understeer on that last apex, but wrestling the car across the line, and we will make it through into the top 10 thankfully, way up into P3 actually, which surprised me there to see myself in P3 and Raikkonen P5 in Q2, so shown some good pace, but of course maybe the likes of Leclerc not fully dialed up yet, but the 2 Renaults out of this GP. That'll be unfortunate for them, despite them being ahead of us in the performance charts, and they'll be upset with that. But now we move on into the top 10 shootout. But because I used 2 sets of the soft tyres in Q2, I only have 1 free set available to me in Q3. So everyone's set 1 lap time already. You can see it's the end of the session by the top right. So I've gone out for this one and only lap in the top 10 shootout. So at a disadvantage in that kind of way. but at the same time, I have a free track right now, so at least that's something. So we're going to see how it goes. A little bit of oversteer, pushing the car to the limits in Sector 3, definitely unsettling it somewhat here, so really having to wring the neck out of it. We go a little bit wide on the wall and get close to it, then a good apex there compared to our previous laps, and we go across the line. It will be P8 then, it looks like, yep, behind Kimi Raikkonen. So once again in P8, I think, because if it wasn't for the grid penalty in Italy, I would have started in P8 and Raikkonen would have been P7. So we literally matched the qualifying we had last time, and I'm actually happy. I'm really happy that I was able to match Raikkonen, because in Q1 I was thinking, could I go out in Q2? Am I going to be, you know, a second off the pace? Because that's how bad it felt. So hopefully, well, thankfully it did kind of dial in basically, but hopefully it carries on to the race. But obviously the race is going to be wet, so that's going to be a complete unknown, and this could either go two ways, because obviously the AI aren't amazing in the wet on traction, so this could be a very fun Grand Prix for us to overtake some cars with the grid penalty, or it could be a very horrendous one if it's just going to be one of those classic wet races at Singapore from the previous games where it just goes on and on and on forever, because the lap times are just so much longer anyway, you know, despite the dry time being like 1:40, 45 or whatever, like something like that. So you know, this could go two ways, but let's just dive into it. Let's see how it goes, and also see where we end up on the grid, because I don't know if any other people have some penalties, so we may not be in such a bad boat, but I guess we'll just have to see about that.
Hello and welcome one and all to the shining streets of Singapore. Can you believe we've been coming here for nearly a decade now? It feels like only yesterday that Felipe Massa was dragging his fuel hose down the pit lane in that eventful opening race, and in a Grand Prix won from pole position more often than not. Will we see a new victor crowned today? We have a high risk of a safety car here today, as the abundance of tight corners mixed with these wet conditions could put a few cars off into the barriers. 23 turns then, 13 to the left and 10 to the right, make up the 3.1 mile lap of Marina Bay. Joining me for the Grand Prix once again is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk about the engineer. That was a solid result in their last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Bottas, Gasly, Lewis Hamilton, and Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Perez, Ricciardo, and Lando Norris. Verstappen, they've taken a grid penalty. Stroll, Devon Butler, and Sainz. Grosjean, Weber, Kevin Magnussen, and George Russell, the engineer, and Alexander Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Alright, so here we are on the grid then in P19. So, yeah, in hindsight, we probably should have taken all our penalties and just been P20 with like a 60 place penalty. But obviously, you can say a lot of things in hindsight, and it was already too late. We had already gone to the grid before I kind of realised that revelation there, basically. So we are here, P19. Strategy-wise, you can see there, it says 2 intermediates, but the heavy rain is coming down. So we will probably be switching to the blue wall wet tyres, which I can't remember, actually. I don't think we've actually ever used them yet in this season. I think we've been all into so far when it comes to rain and damp conditions. So that'll be interesting to see how the car performs in there, and if it's the same thing on the inters in terms of that traction advantage against the AI. But we'll have to see how it goes once we get to that. But 31 laps around Singapore, you know, 2-minute lap time. This is going to be a long old race for me. Of course, for you guys, you're just seeing the highlights, so you get the luxury of that, but it's going to be a very long Grand Prix for me to record. But let's get into it then. As we now go to 5 red lights from P19 on the grid here at the Singapore Grand Prix. The floodlights are out, the rain's coming down, quite a spectacle it is indeed. But here we go, fire lights are out and we're underway, and it's a shaky start for us actually there as we get bogged down a little bit. Alexander Albon maybe sniffing around. We're going to try to go to the inside of George Russell, but he fends off the first turn, but it's going to get very tight indeed. We're down the inside of 2-3 cars there, up into P17 momentarily, now down back to 19th place as we go side by side. I'm pretty sure 3 wide there with the 2 Williams cars of Weber and Russell, the 2 Hasses of Grosjean and Magnussen doing duels. And can we go around the outside of both of them and sail it round? We're going to try our best around Grosjean at least. Magnussen though nips ahead and he's in P15, but we're already up into P16 then, so 3 places gained, could be a 4th here as we close up on Magnussen. Overtake mode engaged on the ERS. Can we make a dive to the outside? Going to go very late on the brakes. It's a double lock up, and That could have been very frosty indeed going towards Devon Butler there, our former F2 bitter rival there, so that could have been quite controversial. But instead, we're now going to make a cheeky little dive to the inside there. That Toro Rosso very weak this season for sure. I think it's the worst car on the grid actually on paper. I think the Williams made a huge step up in the last few races, and so that Toro Rosso is actually technically the worst car on the grid. And so we go around the outside and dance around Devon Butler, embarrass him a little bit, and we're up into P14 then. So it's actually been a very good start then. 5 places gained, already only 4 places off the points paying position, so not too shabby now. But we're going to close up on Carlos Sainz, and there's already a bit of a train, 2 kind of different trains forming with the top guys and then the midfield here, and you've got about 6 cars in this train. So let's try and close up, and we get brilliant traction there. You can see the difference in traction versus the AI there of Carlos Sainz. Around the outside we go on the left hand side. Bit of a flash of light in there, a bit of a weird lighting system going on there. I can't lie, a lot of flashing lights going off. But we're up into P13 then as we waltz through on the left hand side. They're looking very good. The Alfa is feeling decent right now in these inter conditions, but I think the question mark will be how will it feel once the rain really starts to come down. We have to go to full wet. I mean, already the track is looking very damp indeed. I would say we're only maybe a few laps away from the full wet, so let's watch out for it. But meanwhile, we're trying to jostle Stroll for position left and right, trying to keep him guessing here. But at the moment, he's done a great job at parking the car in the middle. But now we get the switchback move on him. He's gone wide and deep into that right-hander. But now we've done the same thing on the next right-hander. Stroll down the inside. He's re-overtaken us for P12 there. So Stroll put up a good fight there. I thought I had him easy, but I just got too overconfident on the brakes then into that next right-hander where the Singapore sling used to be. But now it's just that nice, delicate left-hander before the right as they go on over the bridge. As we now go down the inside of the Canadian to finally get this done. Lock up though on the right tyre makes us go wide, and Lance Stroll. Yellow flags there. I think he got put into the wall a little bit. That was my bad, but at the same time I locked up, so I couldn't really do anything at that moment in time. I was a passenger in the car and I was already ahead of Stroll, so at that point he should have just backed out majorly, but it looks like he didn't, so I kind of feel bad about that, but at the same time I can't really do too much. So yeah, I guess we'll just call that a racing incident, to be honest. But we're going to move now back onto a fighting charge here as we move on to lap number 3, close up to Lando Norris this is. And again on the exit, this hairpin corner, we're going to find the traction, get the power down nice and early, hot lap mode engaged, a little bit of a squabble there on the rear end there for us in 5th gear, so still a little bit of issues on traction. It's not fully perfect, and we actually have to try and cut out that move because Norris cuts us off there. So I tried to make a dive to the inside like we did on Stroll, didn't work out. But now on the next exit, Stroll though, Norris is so slow that we're on the inside to the outside now for the next left-hander. We're really having to wrestle the car though because the rear end is stepping out as we try and dance around him, but we've done it and we're up into P11 now. So we're only 1 place off points paying positions, and that next car though is Max Verstappen. So very odd to see the Red Bull, at least with Verstappen, doing poorly. I think Gasly's in the top 3, so interesting to see Verstappen, the one struggling right now in the wet conditions. Generally speaking, the Verstappen AI has been a little bit better than Gasly this season so far, so surprised to see him struggling at the moment. But to be fair, he's caught up behind Sergio Perez, the Racing Point car, and Ricciardo there. I think that is in the Renault, and obviously we know from real life the Red Bulls sometimes have issues getting past the Racing Point cars and Mercedes cars in general, you know, a la the Canadian Grand Prix. I remember obviously Singapore was a bit of a different circuit, and I would like to think Verstappen has the downforce in the corners, but clearly not right now as he's still stuck behind him. We move on to lap 6 now and trying to line this up as we go through the first few turns, trying to get the power down as early as we can. Verstappen is so poor on the traction. He's also held up a little bit there behind Perez, I think that was, and so he's a little bit slow. We go on the outside of this off-camber right-hander, so awkward anyway in the dry to make an overtake, let alone in the damp conditions on inters, but we made it work. The Alfa Romeo Ferrari-powered engine is going to be very easily past that Red Bull Honda despite some upgrades, I'm sure, and we're up into P10 then in the points-paying position. So only 6 laps gone. We're not even a third of the way through this race, and we're already in the points-paying positions. Very, very good. And now a lot of people coming to the pit lane, including my teammates. That's why I've stayed out on lap 7, because my team have said to stay out to lap 7 because I think they knew Raikkonen was going to come in. Obviously, he's the man first out on track, so fair play. He has the first bite of the cherry. We're going to continue on for 1 more lap on inters, then go into full wets because it's needed. But a big thing is, in the pit lane there, you saw that was Hamilton being held up and double stacked with his teammate. I think the same could be said with Ferrari, Red Bull as well. A lot of double stacking going on there for the top guys, and so maybe there's enough time lost in the pit lane there where maybe we could get a cheeky overcut, essentially. I was going to say undercut, but it's an overcut as we've gone on for 1 more lap there. So yeah, that's Hamilton going down the pit lane. There's Raikkonen. So Raikkonen's jumped Hamilton because of that, because I'm pretty sure Raikkonen wasn't ahead of Hamilton before, and so Bottas is the one that I think leads the way. But yeah, as we kind of slide into the pit lane and just about nearly miss the entry completely, but we get in eventually, we're going to see where we are going to be, because we're in P1 right now, clean air, no issues for us, no double stack for us. There's hardly anyone in the pit lane apart from Sainz, I think, and a Williams team. So let's see how this goes. Going to strap on those blue wall, very big, chunky full wet tyres. I must say, you actually feel the difference, I think, on this game between the full wets and inters for the first time. I feel like I felt the ride height difference when I started to drive out the pit lane here. But the crucial thing is, look at the top left, we're P5, Raikkonen is up into P4, Hamilton gets up into P6 as he goes down the main straight and overtakes Sainz in the pit lane, but we are just about ahead of Lewis Hamilton then in the Mercedes, the championship leader, I think it is. We're ahead of him now in P5. Absolutely amazing. It's another great result at the moment, P4 and P5 for Alfa Romeo Racing. Stunning stuff here. Well, we've still got a long way to go in this Grand Prix, only 1/3 in it basically, lap 11 only. I don't know how, because so much action's happened here to only be on lap 11 is pretty mad. That's how long the Singapore Grand Prix circuit is. But now we have a bit more drama potentially, interesting action here, because the safety car, the full safety car, is out now. So we were quite some way behind Raikkonen in terms of in the wet. I think it would have taken some time to catch up to him, but now we're going to be right behind him because the safety car will bunch us all up there. So at the moment, it looks like it's Bottas in, I think Bottas is actually second, you know. Yeah, it's Leclerc, I think, in first place. Then you got Bottas, Gasly, Raikkonen obviously in P4 ahead of us, and we're ahead of Hamilton in P5 to his 6. And so here we go. Green flags, and we've been going around for 3 laps here, so a very long safety car period, especially around Singapore. But here we go now, racing once again, and now we have a good chance to maybe try and overtake our teammate Raikkonen for P4, and dare I say, I don't know, in the wet against the AI, maybe get that elusive first ever podium. But to say that, I make a mistake straight away into turn 1. Hamilton's down my inside there. I have to try and compose myself on the outside there, get the power down. He's ahead of us right now, but we've got it back on the acceleration, and we're back up into P5. So a momentary blip of concentration there on the entry to turn 1 on the restart of the safety car. We remain in P5 though, and we're going to try and get our head down and chase after Raikkonen now. We move on 3 laps later this is, so we move on toward lap 18 now, and should we try and get him? We're very close. He's not anywhere near Gasly, so he's got a slower pace right now compared to myself, and so I feel like this is the time to try and overtake him, get very close to his rear end on the into turn 1. And really, there's so much rain right now on the screen, the only thing I can really see is the rain light and his actual name tag there. But here we go now, get the power down. He's so slow on the exit. We're running circles around him on the outside, but we have to go early on the brakes, don't want to lock up too much, and so Raikkonen gets it back down the inside. Obviously, being my teammate, I'm going to go a bit more cautious on the overtake there, where we try and go to the inside down the little kinky on the back straight, leaves us some room. He's left us the space there on the outside, so we go with actually later on the brakes than he is, and we go diving around the outside there. A little bit of a squirm on the exit with the exit curb, but we're up into P4, squeeze him out onto the entry of the next right-hander, try and hopefully make sure that he's not going to get done by Hamilton though, because it would still be good if we can get P4 and 5. And there we go, Bob's your uncle, we are up into P4, and Raikkonen remains in P5. So now from lap 18, hopefully now we just keep on going basically and try and hold position here. I don't think we'll catch Gasly, but we'll just try and hold position, and to that effect, on lap 21 then, 3 laps later, it's now time to come in for intermediates once again, because the track actually started to dry out then. Unfortunately though, you can see it's a double stack for the Alfa Romeo team. Raikkonen has come in with me. In hindsight, probably maybe should have gone the 1 lap earlier, because I think it would have been enough for inters on lap 20 instead of lap 21, and maybe that would have allowed obviously Raikkonen to have this free pit stop, but now he's just got double stacked. And so I can already tell you probably his race can be ruined by myself. But, you know, obviously there's no way, unfortunately, on the game for me to tell your AI teammate that, you know, pit in 1 lap early or pit in the next lap. Unfortunately, he just comes in when he wants to come in. So that's really quite unfair on him and harsh. But, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes on the F1 game. So we're out in P5 then. I think there's at least one person yet to make a pit stop here, because I think we should still be in P4 with Hamilton now in a free position up into P5. But now, lap 22, honestly, we just try and go to the end of the Grand Prix, lap 31, try and lock down this Grand Prix. There's nothing much else to really do, in my opinion, I don't think, and that's exactly what is going to happen here. I believe it's Valtteri Bottas that leads the way now in this final lap. Leclerc's down to P2, Gasly remains in P3. You can see I've remained in P4. You can see it's nearly bone dry. You know, a few more laps, it would have been actually slick tyres here at the very end, so we've had all the emotions and range of weather here. But Hamilton, despite taking the fast lap of the Grand Prix, is unable to catch me there, and we've been pretty okay in this last stage to bring it home in another P4 position in our Alfa Romeo Racing car. Just can't get enough of these P4s, can I?
Great drive, great drive. We're really happy with that performance.
Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, the safety car completely changed the race, didn't it? It's hard to say exactly what would have happened without it, but there's no question that they came out of that situation in a good position.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
great work out there today. Let's have your thoughts. Some excellent overtaking moves from your former teammate today. Did he learn some of them from you?
I didn't really know what to answer with this one, to be honest. That's why I left the answer going on for so long. In the end, I went for the left-hand position, which is going to give me actually a rep increase, which might be quite nice in the future.
Devon did much better in today's race than he did in qualifying. Were you expecting that?
I'm going to say you can never count him out, but obviously my team's done a great job, and so that will increase the rep with the Alfa Romeo Racing team as well. So rep increases all round, doing all the right PR answers this time round, I guess.
You gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you?
Going to compliment the aero department. Since we've got that reset maybe coming up, we're going to need all the morale we can get.
You're breaking all expectations. What's your secret?
And just go with my usual answer here. That will be certainly telling. I always think it's a bit cheeky, but apparently it doesn't give us anything on the showmanship side, but there you go.
Appreciate your time.
And so there you have it. Bottas does indeed win. We come in P4, and that's unfortunate to see Raikkonen outside the points now due to that double stat. That's really, really annoying. That's the only frustrating thing from this entire Grand Prix. Otherwise, it would have been a really good result all round. It would have been P4-5 if Raikkonen just pit one lap earlier, or if I did it. But, you know, I just couldn't tell when it was really going to be that crossover back to Inter's. But like I said, now looking back at it, I probably could have pit lap 20, but it's just the way it goes there. But we're still P4 in the Constructors then, a large amount ahead of Renault, despite Renault now getting ahead of Racing Point, so a good one for them. But we're, good, nearly 100 now ahead of Renault, or double, I guess you could say, of Renault, not 100, double of Renault. So looking very, very comfy in that sense. So that's why I feel confident we can just save. We're on 3,000 R&D points now, and that's, quite a lot to spend, but I want to save it all for the R&D reset, because I think it's going to really affect us, of course. We've got a lot of upgrades on the aero side, so we need to try and save a lot. And also now, because I didn't take all the engine component penalties, and this is another frustrating thing, I probably should have just taken all the penalties in P20 instead of P19, because now, next episode, Russia, I probably will have to take some more penalties, because I've got a lot more parts now that are worn out, the ones that weren't basically replaced for this episode. So,